Hello, Aliki.
Hi, Jonas.
It's nice that you're here.
It is, indeed. Long time.
Yes, it's a long time. You just came from the mountains. Where did you come? From which mountain?
I'm in the valleys, in the valleys area, very close to the Italian borders. Actually.
And what are the glaciers there? What's the name of the glaciers?
Aliki Glacier.
Aliki Glacier.
Yeah. Apparently one of the biggest in the Alps. I didn't know.
Nice. We will talk also maybe about where you're at the moment, what you got out of it, but let's just start. What is your name and what are you doing right now?
My name is Aliki Kostopoulou. I usually cut it and say Aliki Ko, so people can actually find me on social media. And right now I'm working with conscious businesses. I am really on a mission to uplift people who want to create impact through business. That's the tool, practically. So I have realized that I can somehow activate people in their own potential and allow them to expand this potential. And I love business because I feel it's the tool that our civilization has mastered. It's like a process that we know how to accelerate, practically, in these last 300 years at least. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Nice. And how did you got into that? Like, how did you grow up? I guess you were not always doing the same thing before. So where did you grow up and what did you do?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I feel that I had like the past life and the current life in this life. I grew up in Greece. So I'm from Greece originally. Lately I have started realizing why, but that's a different aspect. I grew up and was raised there. And I studied architecture. So I'm an architect by profession. I have been working in architecture in the beginning. And at some point I had a very big personal shift. So what happened is I went from a very, very rational thinker, I'm Greek, don't forget about that, we fucking invented how to think, right? To a much more intuitive and spiritual being. And that was a very unexpected thing for me. I was never thought that I would be working and so involved in spirituality. I didn't even know about it back then, actually. My upbringing was very different. It was very rational, very normal, very down to earth, right? What happened is that I reached this level of the checks, as I call them, like check job, check where you want to be, all of these checks, right? The checklist. And you do the checks and then you're deeply unhappy and you're like, what's happening? I was supposed to be in the best place because I checked all of my boxes, right? But it's not where you were thinking they will take you. So that brings a very big shift, inner shift of there should be something else that I don't know. And then you start searching. And then when you search, you find, obviously. And it has been a journey, and the journey never stops.
Of course.
It just transformed into a very exciting journey, when in the beginning it's just all of it's new and it's difficult and it's just a pure transformation. So that's what happened practically to me. I went from working in large-scale construction for the Olympic Games into becoming a mindfulness practitioner. So a very big shift, as you can imagine.
So for me, it would be interesting, how did your life look like before that realization, before that shift? What did you do in your life, past life, like the past life in this life? What did you do? Like, what kind of things did you do there? What kind of hobbies did you have? And especially, was there one special experience you had, or maybe many in a short time, that changed your, like, was the turning point, let's say?
So just before the turning point, and I think that phase also brought me into the shift and the realization, I was in the opposite extreme. I was working for a Greek company that was working for the Olympic Games in Rio. I was living in Brazil. It was like army. 150 men, 3 women.
What?
Living all together, eating all together, working from Monday to Saturday, 16 hours per day. I was 24 hours per day personally. And just like pam, 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 right? And working with construction, which is literally, you have to treat people like dogs. Unfortunately, that's the reality in large-scale construction. And I was there and I really tapped way too much into my masculine energy, as you can imagine, because you need to survive. Otherwise, they don't listen to you. You're a woman, right? And I don't actually, right now that I'm thinking about that back then, I don't know how I survived. Because I was partying like crazy. I was traveling like crazy. I was working like crazy. Yeah. All of it. And it was adrenaline just to the reds, right? And it was exciting, obviously, right? I was 28 and I was already working a job that many people dream about. Like construction for the Olympic, like you cannot go bigger than that as an architect, right? But there was something wrong. That's the thing. And because I pushed myself so much to the limits and I really lost my soul, I was not able to recognize myself. I remember thinking that if I was another person, I wouldn't like to know me. Wow. And then that, when the project was finishing and we were about to renew the contract, my boss was like, "Are you coming to Korea with us?" I'm like, "No chance." And he's like, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know. I have to find myself." And I literally went into a 4 months journey that started with a Vipassana meditation. So the very first thing I did was a Vipassana meditation, a 10 days.
First, before we go into that, so I assume there was something happening before the Vipassana, like maybe an extreme point in your life where you really felt unhappy or something like that?
It was exactly that.
Do you remember what happened? Maybe you met a friend, he or she was talking to you, maybe you got some health issues. What happened there?
No, it was literally an inner realization or that my life cannot be that. Because I think I got a moment that I zoomed out and I saw how stressed and how unhappy I was. Even though I think the most impactful part of it was that when I was signing the contract, I was believing it was my dream. And a year and a half later, it looked like a nightmare.
Wow. The contract not in Korea, but...
in Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil.
It was giving me exactly what I was... Everything. It was the dream. And the dream turned to a nightmare. Yeah. And then there was this... I think it was even like that the day of my name day. In Greece, we celebrate our name day like our birthday. And everybody has left already. I'm the only one staying back in the construction site because we have to close everything. And it's just like so stressful and so not celebrating who I am. I was like, what am I doing? And why am I doing it? And also there was one more point that because I'm Greek, because the Olympic Games were created in Greece to make peace. It was the only time that we're stopping war back then.
Okay, wow.
And now it's pure money. They come to a country because they have contracts with the big companies and they destroy the country after. And that's in my soul, as like being Greek, is really just an exploitation of what was the spirit of Olympic Games. And funnily enough, the ones who are struggling the most and they're trying the most, the athletes, are the ones who are getting the least. It's not about them. The money doesn't go to them. So it's a big money game right now. And I think these two, it's like I was feeling that I was selling my soul and I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And don't take me wrong, the company that I was working, it was beautiful people. But the whole system behind it, it was not. And then at some point you just cannot do it anymore. You just cannot. No matter how much money it is there, you just can't.
And then how did you get in contact, or how did you get this idea of going to the Vipassana meditation?
So I was really feeling that I was having this intuition that there should be something that I don't know, because that cannot be all. Yeah. It was like, I have no idea what it is, but I will find it. And actually I remember saying to myself that I don't know what I'm going to do, but I will make myself happy. And trust me, I had no idea what it means. I have never really felt the really deep inner happiness. I was entertained. Don't take me wrong, I had an amazing life. Everybody was dreaming. I have been traveling all over, living in 5 countries already. Dream life from the outside. So it was this deep intuition there should be something else. And I had a friend who has been a Vipassana practitioner for a very long time. And she was always telling me about meditating and things like that. But I didn't really I was not negative about it. I was not positive about it. I was just neutral, right? But then I'm like, that's something really outside of what I know. There might be something there. Let me try it. I'm going. So I'm like, okay, send me over the details. And really, it was the first time I ever meditated.
And you went to the 10 days. I mean, I
Vipassana.
also did it. It's not like an easy thing.
No, it was the first time I ever sat to meditate.
Right.
And it was amazing, obviously, right? They have found a recipe for awakening. And what happened, actually, I remember it very well, is that the first 3 days, everything was going according to the plan. I was really good. I was really doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And then, the third day, I get an idea about the project. Oh my God. And then you cannot write it anywhere, you cannot record.
That's something maybe we have to explain to the listeners or the viewers. In Vipassana, what are the rules in the Vipassana meditation?
Yeah, so Vipassana, it's a 10 days silent meditation. Practically, you're going into a space with other practitioners and with the teachers. You're in complete silence. Ideally, they ask you to not even have eye contact. So really going inwards.
Yeah.
And you don't have a phone, you don't have a watch, you don't have a notebook.
Yeah.
You cannot do yoga, you cannot run, you cannot go out of the space. You're really restricted. And you practically meditate 8 hours per day. It's like from 5 o'clock, I think it's 5 o'clock, right? Until 7 in the afternoon, with some gaps of food and some audio guidance. And that's practically it. And then you just sit meditating.
Sometimes for 1 hour, sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes with guidance, sometimes without guidance. Sometimes you can do it in your room. Like there are some dorms, and sometimes you're in the big hall if you you have to, and sometimes it's optional.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's practically it's like a full-time job meditation. So then you cannot write anything. So what the mind does, it's trying to keep the idea to not lose it. So my mind starts obsessing about the idea. So then for the next 3 days, the first 3 days are nice. The next 3 days, I just cannot stop my brain from working. And then you're sitting 8 hours per day meditating, and you're not meditating. You're obsessing about an idea. And the interesting part was that a pain started in my stomach. A very heavy pain that was not going out with sleeping. That used to be my medicine before. That sleeping was always my medicine, right? And it just was not going out. And we're in the 6th day. There's 4 days to go to complete the course. And I'm really pissed off with myself because I'm like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do here. What am I doing? And the tricks started. Maybe you should quit. Maybe you should go, right? Like this moment. And I'm like, you know what? We are not quitting. We're going to stay here for the next full 10 days. If you want to continue obsessing about the project for the next 4 days and not do what we're supposed to do, it's fine. We're going to sit 8 hours and obsess about the project.
Nice.
That day, my brain stopped completely.
Wow.
I felt that I was spinning around and all the energy went out and the pain just left my body. Wow. And then the next 4 days were back into doing meditation.
Wow.
And I realized that I can negotiate with my brain. And that's what I found out last year, is what actually they call awakening. It's when you get this distance that you're not your brain and you can really approach it in a different way. So that was the very first experience with meditation.
Awesome. Yeah, as I remember, I was on the Vipassana and besides of the pain you have in the beginning anyway from the back, I don't know how it was for you, but for me it was quite painful. One thing I never forget, I mean there are many things, but especially this one, I was so much like, you have like, I was in Switzerland, so they had like these gardens, like Porte de Soleil was the area. So they had these gardens, like these lots of paths. And on one side are the men, and on the other side are the women, so they're separated. So anyway, I was walking there, and you shouldn't talk to anyone, you shouldn't look at anyone, things like that. So I was so bored out sometimes in the breaks, also while meditating, but in the breaks. So I started to build stone towers. So I just started with one, and I was really not really skilled at this, so it took me a while, and I had my first stone tower. And I was really happy with it. I was kind of doing something, which is not recommended, but I still did it. And then it became an obsession.
Of course.
I did more towers. I remember one special moment, I was really going down there again, and and this was kind of interesting, I was just taking stones, like kind of in a trance, I didn't have to
adjust them.
Readjust. It was just perfect. I was like, wow, that's cool. So I did more. And the last tower I did about 20 or 30 towers like that, and it was most of them were like this. And yeah, that I have to tell that also. Like there were other guys, of course, walking there, and my also obsession kind of became that I want to surprise the guys. Ooh. Because they are just kind of meditating, walking. Wow. And then I saw this tower, this beautiful tower, and in the beginning they didn't know who it was, of course. So there was, and sometimes I was waiting in the house where you eat. You can look down. So I was looking at the reactions, and they were like just meditating, and they knew about some towers, but there was a new one, so they were like walking, saw the old ones, and I was on top. I was like,
the slipping of the ego in anything. Yeah. And it's a time to observe that, and that's what the amazing thing about Vipassana. Yeah. You really observe yourself going into these patterns. You're like, oh my God, I'm still trying to present myself in a different way.
Communication. I want to show up. I want to have some feedback from people. I want to be appreciated by people. And so the last tower I did was really in front of the house. It was really, it was really like stone. I started with these stones, and they were like really like my size, maybe almost 2 meters. And then one of the teachers, he came, hey, I mean, it's nice that you do all these towers, but maybe you should stop. Can you please take it down? I was like, okay. And I was a bit pissed off in the beginning. I was like, yeah, but in a way, it's like an obsession. So, and then I stopped with it. But yeah, it was interesting. Also, remember that like on the second last day, the silence is over, so you can talk to each other. And like, for example, when we meditated in the front area, one guy was often coughing, like this. And I was always like surprised and was like, shit, I don't like it that he coughs and I have closed eyes and I'm surprised by it. And then I was like, I'm so pissed off that he's doing it, but how can I change it to a more positive thing? So I gave him a name. I gave him the name Sören, and in German, like it's a Swedish name, Sören, but it's close to stören, like it's disturbing in English. So it's like, yeah, Sören is here, he wants to have some attention. Yes, I love you too, and things like that. And then after the silence was over, I asked neighbors of him in the front row. I asked them, you were never like pissed off or whatever? And you know what they said? They said, I never heard him coughing.
Interesting, huh? We had a woman next to us that really felt like a dragon was coming out of her. Wow. You cannot even imagine. And after, when we start, and everybody was of course extremely annoyed because it was extremely strong what was coming out. But at some point you just accept it, and you just accept the person going into a process, right? Yeah. And I asked her after, and she's a psychiatrist. So like, now I understand, because you have been absorbing so much energy. I'm sorry that I even thought like something negative in the beginning, or annoyed or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, Vipassana is a recipe. Yeah. They have found the recipe, literally.
So what happened after the Vipassana? What changed in your life, or what did you do differently?
After the Vipassana was my very deep dive. Vipassana was just the trigger, right? It was just the beginning. The real transformation happened when I moved to Switzerland. Yeah. After the Vipassana, I went really traveling for some months. I just really needed to be outside of anything. Yeah. And then I had really no plan. It was one of the few times in my life that I had zero plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was not ready to start something new. It was just like, I was just going into the dark night of the soul, right? And then my boss actually offered me a position in Switzerland, and I knew that it would be a very easy, with a lot of time, being alone position in a very neutral space. So actually, I didn't take it for that. I take it because I went to the mountains and I loved it, and I'm like, I can have a little bit more of that. But I ended up from Rio de Janeiro, 10 million people, to Bar in Switzerland, which I think had like 10,000 maybe. And from extreme social life to nothing, literally.
Yeah.
And also, it was the first time after forever, probably, that I had time to think and process what has happened in my life, because I have lived already in Greece, Spain, Germany, Costa Rica, Brazil, 5 countries in less than 5 years practically, a little bit more, and I never had the time to process. So it was so much accumulated information of who I am. So it just took the time, and it was a time that I remember very clearly being in my apartment and having so much happening inside of me that I couldn't move, I couldn't travel, I couldn't do anything outside. It was such a journey inside. And that had never happened before because I'm a huge traveler, right?
Yeah.
So what happened is that it was this, I felt that I was putting down all my labels that was given to me, because I never really chose them. And now that I wanted to pick up only the ones that I really choose. So am I Greek? Am I a woman? Am I an architect? Like all the typical ones. Like I never really chose them. It's clinging on me, right?
Yeah.
It was a difficult time. I thought I was going crazy. Thank God I had some friends who were a little bit ahead of that time. So they would give me some hints. For example, one of my best friends, she sent me the book of Joe Dispenza, I didn't know him back then, How to Change the Habit of Being Yourself. And I'm like, are you seriously sending me self-help books? But because I trust her, I read it. And it's not a self-help book, it's like an anatomy of your brain, practically. And I was like, whoa, I'm not the only one. And that started really allowing me to understand that there are patterns we can study, we can explore. And from being an, oh my God, it's my own personal suffering, it starts transforming into, that's so interesting. Does it happen to other people? The change that happened to me, can I help other people go through them? So it started transforming inside of me. And I remember one moment, that was like, I think it was 1 year later than moving. So 1.5 years after doing the Vipassana, let's say, right? That was the first trigger. That I'm on the mountains, I'm skiing, it's the last day of the season, which for me it's a very sad day because I'm never ready for the end of the season. It's very cloudy outside, I have hurt my legs so I cannot ski, so like the conditions are not perfect, not perfect at all. But inside of me I have such a deep happiness that I really stopped and was like, wait a second, I said that I will bring myself here. How did I do it? I want to bring more people to this space. This inner space, right? Like, I want more people to experience that.
Kind of like when anything around is kind of like chaos, or maybe it's like this storm, like this, what they have in America, for example, and you're in the middle of it.
It was more that it doesn't depend on external conditions.
Yeah.
At all.
You were like the smiling Buddha, just happy with everything.
Yeah. I was used to create conditions to get entertained and have fun. That was normal for me. I know very well how to entertain myself. Yeah. But I never have experienced the opposite. Being in this and that was just a much deeper sense of happiness that I have ever experienced before. It was just different, you know. So then I start being interested in reverse engineering it to understand how it happened, so I can guide other people. Like I did it 3 years ago. I was saying that I will do it. I was not believing that I will, and it happened. I was like, oh my God, you know. I was not believing that it will happen. So other people can do it, and it's not even so long. I was like, whoa, crazy. Yeah. So then I started experimenting with myself. I actually started a self-experiment with biofeedback and heart rate variability and neurofeedback. To see what kind of techniques, practices, because I was doing a lot during this time. Every type of healing or meditation, everything. I have done everything.
Oh, you were in this phase. You tried many
everything.
things. Yeah.
You just try everything because
The
you
searcher,
don't know
the
what
seeker.
applies.
Yeah,
you just try.
You needed new answers for your questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, what from all of those things works, or what works best, or because I didn't know, I didn't have the recipe. There were so many things that you don't know what actually created the transformation, right? So I started testing myself. Like I really had the muse and the heart variability equipment, and doing different practices.
To explain, it's kind of what is it?
It's sensors.
It's sensors, and what do they do?
They measure the brain activity. That's neurofeedback, as they call it. So they tell you in which brain waves you are. Yeah. Different brain waves bring a different state of experience. So practically when usually we're in alpha and beta brainwave state, that's the normal awake awareness, as they call it. And theta is this, almost the extreme opposite, is this state of deep healing or deep meditation, is when you can alter your inner conditions, you can alter your DNA, you can alter your health. It's this state that the monks, for example, are trying to go. So I wanted to see what kind of practices can bring you into different states of brain function. That was the first step, because I thought it starts from the brain. Very soon I realized that it doesn't, at least not in healing. And I moved to heart rate variability. If heart rate variability is a measurement of how is the beating of your heart. They have told us, because we had simpler devices, that the heartbeat needs to be very regular. Yep. That's not true. What happens is that the heart needs to be very adaptable to your environment. The more adaptable it is, the more resilient you are.
I didn't know that.
So there are micro changes, and the previous equipment, they couldn't catch that. They were only catching the big changes. Yeah. But as we get better equipment, we see that there are micro changes in between the beats. And the higher these micro changes are, the more adaptable you are. So that usually, during your lifetime, the heart rate variability usually goes down, meaning your heart is less adaptable. Yeah. And you can even see it in older people clinging too much in what they do and how they do things, and getting very anxious if something changes. Yeah. That's because your heart also doesn't know how to deal with it. It's different conditions. So the more you prevent that from happening, the more agile you are, practically. And that measurement is really, really the one that was representing my subjective experience. Because the brain has a different function than the heart. The healing happens from the heart chakra, not from the brain. It reflects in the brain, but doesn't happen there. So what I was experiencing in doing like deep Reiki healings, for example, it was really represented from the heart rate variability. So that was the beginning of me starting engaging with group practices and being very interested in coherence, which was a term that was very new back then. It's been studied from HeartMath. It's an amazing institute in the US that is really studying how the heart operates, because we didn't know so much about the heart. And for me, it's impressive to observe it when it happens in a group. Just to give you an example, because you know what it is, we all know what it is this moment that you are in a meeting and you enter and everybody's kind of like checking their phones and putting their things down, and you start, and in the beginning, your mind jumps somewhere else and you're somewhere else, and then slowly you start feeling that everybody's coming into the space, and the ideas feel that they start coming from all the heads at the same time. So somebody says something like, yes, I was thinking the same, and we can do that. And the other's like, yeah, and that will lead us there. You're building upon, right? Yeah. Your one heart brain. Yeah. That's coherence.
Wow. Yeah, I remember this, especially when I was about 20. I was a Boy Scout, and we had like every Monday we met and we planned what's happening on a Saturday. And we also had this, like we were really in the deep diving kind of energy and connected, and also, yeah, it's interesting Yeah, these moments when you talk about this, I can really remember many of these moments. They were just magical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For me, that's the whole point why we are coming together in groups. It's the only reason to work in a team. The team has to be more than the sum up of its parts. If it's just the sum up of its parts, you better work alone. It's faster, it's more efficient.
Yeah.
I'm guaranteed.
Yeah.
But when you come together and something extra is being created because you are together, then it's real magic in the group. And that's what I love working with groups for.
Did you hear about, I mean, I don't know if it's existing this word in English, but they call it the egregorianer, the egregorian. It's kind of like an energy awareness. Like you have different memes, like the spiral dynamics that also talk about these W memes. And it's basically you have one value for a society, let's say, and it's a separate kind of body.
Yeah, it's a separate entity.
Yeah.
It's definitely an entity that is additional, and that's practically what happens in every business also. Every business is an entity itself, and you have to update it because it's not a live organism, and it is being created by the energy that's being created into the teams, into the groups.
That brings me to something I heard and I was really fascinated by. So we need food to survive, and water, and so what we're doing, we are eating plants, we are eating animals, some of us still, and we're just taking food, and it's most of the food is like physical, we can touch it. And I heard this theory about like, because everything is a circle, and we are also serving other entities with some parts of our existence. So the theory goes like, we are serving other entities with our energy. So it's less on a physical level, it's more on an energetic level. And for example, when we are in fear, when we are in anger, low vibration, we are serving some species, some entities, and then when we're high vibration, we're serving others. So the theory was like, there is kind of, maybe not a war, maybe yes, of these different species, and they want to like the high vibration, let's say, eaters, they want to be stronger than the low vibration, and the same way back.
There is a polarity. I personally choose not to engage a lot with the idea of other entities, even though I do believe that they exist.
Yeah.
I love to engage with the idea of polarities and which polarity do you want to support. Because polarity, there is everywhere. There is black and white, there is darkness and light. That's like physics, like that's down to the basics, right? And according to the vibration you are in, you're supporting one or the other. Because you're just adding up your little stone into the wall of that, or into the wall of the other, right?
Yeah.
But there is a very interesting dynamic about feeling the non-visible entities and dynamics, right? And you can really see and sense when they appear into the space, and they can also be hijacked. Exactly as we can, if we're unconscious. So definitely, and there's a lot to do about awareness that can prevent that and allow us to be much more heading in the direction that we are supposed to, instead of being taken into other directions.
And something I got from Jason Silva, I think you know also his YouTube channel, Shots of Awe, and he was like having this beautiful quote. It's called like, you get created by what you have created. So if you create beauty into your life, the beauty creates you back.
Absolutely, it's a feedback loop, of course.
And also Matthias De Stefano talks about this. The reason why people go to have kind of a heaven feeling or life or a hell is because they are creating this scenario just for their a transition to a new a realization, or to learn something out of it. And so many, especially the people who went through hell, they say like, I went through hell. They are the most interesting people to talk to, because they had this they were really down in life, and then from this they built everything again. And then of course the heaven feeling is also interesting, but it can be really boring. Like you have everything.
You know what? You cannot go very far in the light if you don't go in the darkness.
Yeah.
It's a bipole, literally. It's at some point you really hit ceiling. If you don't dive, you cannot go more up. So that's a little bit of my criticism about the whole lightness of the spiritual. Where it's like also not only in the darkness, because there's many spiritual practices that are going only in down. No, you do need the upper chakras, but not only the upper chakras. You need both.
It's kind of like you can go to the mountain like you do right now. You can go to the mountains, you can have an overview effect of everything, and it feels really good. Always when I'm in the mountain, it feels like there are no problems at all. And then sooner or later you have to go down and go back to work and create something, and it can be sweaty, it can be, you can cry, sometimes you cry, sometimes you're sad, whatever. Like, there is a beauty in the pain, there is a beauty in suffering. And that's why we have this beautiful music, for example, which is like really showing where these people went through.
We're not supposed to experience only positive feelings. We're supposed to experience everything.
Yeah.
That's the full experience, actually.
I like that. Yeah.
And that's when you really like, oh my God, that's really a full human experience. That's it.
So let's talk about the 4 elements. You work with the 4 elements. Something I read about half a year ago, you went to Egypt, I think, was it? Egypt? And you had this experience in the pyramid.
So the 4 elements had been a very interesting story. Because it literally came to me. I don't really know how. Actually, I remember the moment that I was in Portugal, and I was in a very natural environment, living in the middle of a valley, really in a very protected space. I was very lucky for that. And everybody was going into finding solutions for COVID. And I was just looking around me. And what I was receiving from the human realm of information and what I was seeing, experiencing around me, they were just so contradicting. And I was looking at a huge lab that has been piloting and testing for billions of years. Nature.
Of course.
And it has been working pretty well.
Yeah.
And I was like, where are we looking for solutions? Excuse me? Like, we have a lab that knows how to create solutions every single day. Nature, when it creates a leaf, it doesn't go like, stop the weather conditions. I'm creating a leaf this month. When I'm going to launch it, then you can change again the conditions, right?
Yeah.
It's on the go. We cannot create something better than that, right? I was like, where are we searching for solutions, for God's sake? And then what happened, I got in contact with a beautiful woman from Mauritius. She's a researcher and scientist that has been working a lot into how to create balance within the 4 elements in different types of situations, from post-war zones until small companies and all the layers in between, right? And I realized that the most important part in any type of system is the balance. If you have too much water, it's not good. You have drought. If you have too much fire, it's not good. Yeah. If you have too much of anything, it's not good. The balance is what creates a very healthy system that can thrive, actually. And I realized that that's what we're missing right now. We're going only in one direction, only in the other. And then what happened when I was in Egypt? So this system of the 4 elements start coming into my awareness, right? And then we created an activation last February in Portugal that was extremely interesting, mostly because it took me 1 month of integration after. But that was the organizer. I was not supposed to need that.
That's life.
But it was messages from nature directly to our subconscious. So it was like very clear codes that we all downloaded, right? During that. And when I went to Egypt a little bit after that, and I was inside the pyramids, I realized that that's exactly the reason they were building the pyramids. So the pyramids are not a bad thing or a good thing. They're a system. They're a device. Practically what you do, you place in the four corners the four elements, and they were placing in the four directions that represent the four elements.
Yep.
But then, being an architect, that's very clear for me. If you have only a square, the square is the first stable structure in geometry, but it doesn't move. It's stable. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't create any type of motion. When you add the fifth, you add the direction, a fifth point, it starts going somewhere. It starts giving it a direction. And that's practically why they were creating the pyramids. The pyramid is really a device. It's an amplifier. It's an energetic amplifier. It's not good, it's not bad. If you place something good in the center, it would amplify something great. If you place something bad, it would amplify something bad. It doesn't have an opinion about what's amplifying. It's a device.
Yeah.
The way we use it is the difference.
That's interesting. So what do you think, or what did you see there, or what is your theory about these pyramids? Why, what did they do usually in these pyramids?
Let me take you there. You are a civilization, right? That you are in your right. I'm talking still about the time that you are in the rising of the civilization, right? And you want the well-being of your people, because that's all civilization want when they're in the rising of it. And they go into operation, right? It's this curve. So if you have understood and realized that the best way to create this well-being is energetic, and it doesn't need transportation, it's very sustainable practically, because you just create the magnetic field that affects everybody. It's the easiest way to go actually to create well-being. So these devices were literally creating a field around Cairo that was allowing everybody to stay in this high that you get when you're in a retreat space.
Wow.
And what they were doing, they were using water actually. Under the pyramids there are channels, and I was impressed because when I was in Egypt, I went actually for a water experiment. And I was impressed to see that in every single temple, there is a water shaft in the entrance that was used to change the structure of water. In every one of them. So practically, they were creating a positive vibration because all the holy places, first of all, they are already built upon geomagnetic fields that are very positive. Even the location is important. And second, every time you pray, every time you are creating a bigger magnetic field around this place. And they're built with specific material, very hard stone normally, because the stone holds more. As it holds more warmth, that's why we were using it in the old stoves, it holds more for a longer time the vibration because it's a more thick material. That's like physics, right? So that's why they were building them, and every time you pray, every time you enhance that. And then the water is flowing into the Nile and it's flowing into your tap and or your systems, and people are drinking a force that is positively charged. It's exactly the opposite of what we're doing right now, by the way. Exactly the opposite.
Our water is dead, right?
Yes. So it's the easiest way to create well-being in civilization. But then, of course, because we're humans, you will go into a moment that you will understand its power. And there will be somebody who will want to use it for their own benefit. And there is the turning of all civilizations. They fell because exactly for the same reason. They went into ego. From service to ego. Same thing. And again, when it changes again, it starts. And I think that right now we are exactly in this moment, changing from ego to service again. To start thinking. Because now we are very much in the level. I think that's clear.
But isn't that interesting? Like I was also watching a documentary. I got it on one of my Telegram channels, and it's about there was they say that and also they have proofs in that there was a time more than 100 years ago we had a civilization where we were really advanced kind of civilization, and they even say they were before this time there were 4 civilizations that were in higher awareness, higher energy. And something I didn't know and maybe you've heard about these star forts. Have you heard about star forts?
Yes.
Like worldwide, there are like places where, for example, in Holland, there are many of them. Like they have like a kind of like there's a city or a village inside, and there is like kind of a star form, and there is water around. And something also like the Liberty statue, they say, is on a star fort, so it blocks the energy that was there before.
So back then, what they were doing practically is the way where are placed all of these temples, and they're not only in Egypt actually, it's a belt around the world.
Yes.
They were placed in energetic spots. Really, imagine that you're placing a magnifier, an amplifier, into the spot, and you're placing that around the globe. It was practically to stabilize the energy, the magnetic field. That's why they're placed like that.
Yeah.
Of course, now that has broken down because we're not using them for the same reasons, actually. But it's coming a bit back. But that was the reason they were doing them. And that's why, because you're like, why would you make such huge things? There is a very particular reason. It's not like, I just want to make something beautiful. No, it was not only about beauty. Pyramids are not beautiful, are super lean, practically. So it's not about beauty.
The most people that I didn't know, like there are, I think, some 10,000s of pyramids worldwide. Yeah. For example, in not Kosovo, the neighbor with B, I forgot the name. Like there are like lots of pyramids. You think they are mountains, but the shape is really special. Also in Switzerland, we have
in Serbia, there's in Mexico, there's in Guatemala, there's in India. There's
and
a lot
of course,
of places.
ancient, like in Cambodia, for example, these are also, of course, these.
And one more thing, we don't know when they were built, actually. That's the thing. And there are even temples next to the temples that we know where they're built that we don't know when they were built. And you find them around the world, the same way of structure.
And the Gizeh pyramid, for example, they have these two smaller ones, and they're exactly on one line of the. What is the name of this line around the world?
No, not equinox.
Just like this exact line, it's really built exact, and the stars are exactly on top. Exactly. Like so interesting. Yeah.
So that's the thing. By now, we have started realizing that there might have been 6 or 7 cycles of 5,000 years of human existence on Earth. So we're going way more back than we want to think.
And also, how did they build them? I mean, they had other technology, I'm sure.
Exactly. At this question, I'm like, you know what?
That's too much.
That technology, it's just bullshit. Like literally. Because everybody's like, how was the technology back then? I'm like, if you know how to use energy, you don't need to build anything in the material world because you don't need to. Anyway, that's it.
That's maybe the last thing about this I want to say. Like, just imagine we realize we have more energy than we need. Even for Bitcoin machines or whatever it is, in the end, we take this. They call it the 0-point energy, and we can decentralize the energy resources, so everyone can have more than enough energy. How would it change the society, the world?
So most of the people who are working with 0-point energy, they say that it will never come into our hands unless we are ready. Because right now, we cannot handle it well. We are not using energy for the correct reasons. Imagine if we have unlimited. We're just going to blow up ourselves. So we're first going to be able to handle it, and then it will be able to happen in scale.
And isn't that, like, I was having a podcast with Joel Gonzalez, and it's the third, if you want to watch it, and he was talking about the one thing that everyone is agreeing on the world right now is money. And it's like
I wouldn't say that everybody agrees on that.
More or less, we have to work with money, some people more, some people less. And it's still like, what I'm thinking, like it's still like, usually it's still physical, like you have the gold, you have the paper money, you have the coins. And what if just the narrative of energy is everything? if we can change it to a non-physical value?
I think it's going towards there. The thing about money is that there is a lot of healing that needs to happen, because there is a lot of layers upon the existence of money that were not always the brightest and the lightest in the serving. So that's exactly actually why I'm working with conscious businesses. It's transforming this field and allowing it to change itself into something that is really supportive of us instead of restrictive.
So what do you see these days? Like, what are the pain points most companies have when they are not really like growing, or when the employees are not really happy in this company? Where do you see, where are the pain points?
So everything is changing, and also in business, right? Most of the companies and organizations, they know that if they don't innovate in 5 years max, they're out of the market. That's very short. So most of them have started disrupting themselves. As funny as it sounds, the big organizations are going to they create separate groups that disrupt their own industry, because they know that otherwise somebody else will disrupt them.
Yeah.
So everything has started accelerating, and it's non-predictable. And that's the big thing about business. Business always used to be about prediction, and now we can't.
And the market hates that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everything is based upon prediction in business. Yeah. And now it's not possible anymore.
Chaos.
So we are really embracing change.
Yeah.
And it's really an art and science of how to tap and embrace change and use it, to flow with it, instead of trying to prevent it to not happen. For many years they were trying to prevent it, and they did actually, but it's not possible anymore. And one more thing, people are changing. The new generation doesn't want to work for corporate just for money. They just will not do it. As simple as that. So big corporations have very big difficulty to find talent. Yeah. As funny as it sounds right now, it's their biggest pain point. And first to find, and second to maintain. Yeah. Because people don't want to be there. Yeah. And for me, it's like, it makes absolute sense. Why would you want to be somewhere if it's not fulfilling your purpose? We are moving into an era that, thank God, at least part of the world doesn't need to work for the basics. And that's exactly, we start covering the first layer of the Maslow pyramid. So we start, other things start being more important. So you cannot be based only upon that. And that's the interesting part. And also, just many more people have the possibility to explore other options, to find what is their purpose, to have people helping them, to speak out, to start something. Like right now, to start a business, it's just so easy. In half an hour, you can have like your domain and up and running. In one day, you can have your website. It's YouTube, like, and everything. It's almost like for free, like, or super low price. Yeah. Even 5 years ago, it was not like that. 10 years ago, it was definitely not like that. Yeah. So everybody can create something. Yeah. So that changes a lot the game.
Yes, and we talked about this bottom-up idea. So let's say the small, if you can call it like that, like the individual people can create new ideas, and they don't have to wait until like the big companies they accept it. For example, I remember Kit Kat. It's like a chocolate. They had this shitstorm when like it was full of like they produced it with palm oil, and then I think WWF they were having like a picture with fingers of a gorilla, and it was the Kit Kat, and they wanted to stop it, so they went to the lawyers. And I think, I'm not sure if they won or not, but until then, so many other people, they copied the picture, put it on their own social media. So they had to, first they just wanted to silence them,
of course, yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is really interesting. Yeah, and yeah, you also talk on your website about like coming from the warrior's energy into the magician. What do you mean by that?
First of all, I would love to define warriors, because many people have been asking me, why do you put a word that talks about war? And I'm like, that's not what the warrior is. The archetype of the warrior is the one who's guarding and preserving what he believes. He's the one who's fighting for his values.
Yeah.
And that's the correct energy of the warrior. It's not the one who's going to conquer and steal. No, that's the shadow part of it. We have to transform also the existing concepts. The Warriors for Elements came to me as a name, and it was really not because I wanted to put it there. I just want to place that it's connecting with the archetype of somebody who has gone out in the world and claimed what he believes that needs to happen. And that's really the archetype of a conscious business owner. It's like, I see that that's wrong and I want to do it differently. So I will create a business that corrects that. And that's practically the archetype of the warrior. But we are ready to start walking to... There's one more thing. The warrior as an archetype is the one who's going and doing it, making it happen. Yeah. Right? But
no matter what.
Exactly, no matter what. Yeah. That's not enough for the era we are entering. Yeah. It's not enough. We are not supposed to create things with force anymore. We're supposed to create things with flow. And that has a lot to do about embracing the change that we were saying and being able to feel the environment, being part of it and being able to create with it. And that's practically magician. But you can only become a magician if you allow two more things to come into your awareness. Innocence. You shouldn't do it only for yourself. You cannot do it for personal egoistic reasons. It doesn't work. And altruist. You really have to give it away. So it becomes bigger than you. If you don't have these two, you cannot become a magician practically, because you're doing it just for you, and that's not enough energy to support a bigger project.
And also it doesn't make you happy. Like your old life was, I guess, like that, right? Yeah. And something I wanted to say, especially when you're talking about this right now, for me, the Olympics, I mean, it always had a fascination, and it still has it a little bit, but someone told me about like the concept of Olympics or like all these like football league and all that. It's kind of a Hunger Games scenario. It's like the strongest people win, and the other ones, if you're on a second place, if people were on a second place, they were not really happy.
I appreciate the human struggle and the human capacity to go beyond their limits. I do appreciate that in the Olympics. What I don't appreciate is that you really have to engage into modality structures and pushes that you shouldn't. The athletes cannot win Olympics anymore without being boosted. And at some point in their career, they have to take this decision, and this is not right. I'm all about pushing our limits. I love people who are going beyond what the previous person did. And this, I think it has a lot to do with the human spirit. But if only it was as pure as that right now. It's not. And if only the Olympics were really for them, and they're not. That's just this show.
So what do you think in future scenarios of competitions, how can we make it more healthy? Let's say Olympics in the future. Do you have an idea where we can go?
So they have done studies that the optimal amount of competition is 0. Literally.
Okay. You have to explain that.
Meaning, if you have a team, the best thing you can do to have 0 competition for the people to be in their best. 0. So what we have been told, it's a system that we wanted to see around us, but it's not true. The truth is that the more supported and loved you feel, the better you do. That's it, practically. So I start seeing structures and even inside business that it's not about who's best. It's about what do you love doing? What do I love doing? How we can do it together. Yeah. That's it. And I see it very much also coming from the women collaboration. I have been impressed lately collaborating with other women and how natural it is to just see the strengths, and there is no discussion about who's better because these are your strengths. And I'm so happy you have them because I don't. Thank God, somebody has them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We go together.
Yeah.
That's it. And for me, that's the future. Because all of us have to have something different. We are competing in what? Where is the competition aspect? What are we competing for? Right now, the struggle has always been about resources. We are competing for resources, and that's an illusion.
Why?
Because we have way more resources than we need. Our problem is logistics.
That needs an explanation.
We have enough food to feed the whole planet. But because if the supermarket, for example, sells the food that is going out of date, for example, for a lower price, it will drop the price of the initial product. They don't, and they just destroy it and trash it out. So our problem is not that we don't have enough food. Is that we want to keep specific dynamics in the economy and that we don't have a good system to distribute that correctly and go to where it's needed. So that's why. Logistics. Our problem is not hunger, it's logistics.
Yeah. Especially when, I remember when I was traveling in Asia for the first time, I was like, the last country was in Vietnam, and you had maybe 2 or 3 different products of the same thing to choose, maximum. And then I went to Australia. And it was like 20, 30 different, whatever it was. And I felt so overwhelmed by it. And I think we are so used to that, but it doesn't make us happy. It's just like,
of course not.
What should I take? And also like seasonal things, like in the supermarket. If it becomes the normal, maybe first people are a bit pissed off that, let's say, some fruits are not there through the whole year, but you get used to it. You get new receipts, you have, it's like...
We have a very big misconception of what makes, how to create the conditions that allow us to feel happiness. We think that just getting better optimization, it's the way to go. That's not true. You really need differences. In the differences, you actually feel things. Yeah. The things like our societies are trying to optimize and make it better all the time, but then you stop feeling it. So if we're clever enough, we will create conditions that give us these bipoles so we can actually start feeling again. That's the thing. And for me, it's like, it's all about why are we still... We're trying to solve so complex problems and we're creating so complex new systems. And we're not going down to the basics. Everybody to be able to tap into what they need in this particular moment to grow further or to be happy or to be able to survive. Simple. And that's what we are working on actually. To really start seeing system of exchanging of resources and understanding what each one of us need to grow. Because I feel that there is something about all of this mentality of claiming, holding, storing money also, and especially in money, is because we are afraid that we will not have in the future.
Yeah.
If we are sure that when it's needed, it's there, you don't need to store anything.
Yeah.
In the countries that they have food year-round because they're tropical, they don't store anything.
Yeah.
And we call them lazy. No, they just don't need to. Just don't need to. It's just there. You just go and pick it up. And I think that's a mentality, when we're talking about abundance, that is abundance. Not having 2 billion in your bank account, that's not abundance. Abundance is like, whenever you need it, it's there. That's it. And we start understanding all of these systems, and we start tapping into that. And it is collective. It cannot be non-collective. Practically separation happens to enforce the idea of scarcity. Just give you an example. The 2 of us together, we have a house here and a house in Greece, right? Alone, you only have 1 house here. I only have 1 house there. Imagine putting everybody, we have everything by default because we have all the resources when we come together. So it's just how do you exchange them, practically? That's the whole point.
Also, like, I heard about this, like, owning things. I mean, it can be practical, but for example, let's say, vacuum cleaner is maybe the wrong example, but something like you need maybe once a month, you can share it. For example, my mother lives also in Zurich, but it's like they have a new concept where she doesn't live in this particular house, but in the neighbor house they have like this kind of star model. So like everyone who is living in each what is it like?
Story, this floor.
They have one kitchen they share, a big kitchen, and then in the store form they have their own room with their own toilet and shower, and they have this one kitchen they share together. And it's like, I just listened to this idea recently in a podcast. It's basically like, for example, when we would rent things, let's say even mobile phones or whatever, like the companies produce them to rent. Their interest is then shifting to build these smartphones, let's say, to make them durable as possible, the most durable as possible.
Exactly.
And now it's like to make them
the least possible.
The least, yeah,
of course.
So I don't say everything should be rented out, but I think a lot of things could be kind of when we have this, when we are sharing it. That's maybe also like in the future coming more.
Absolutely. These models are coming more, a lot. And I think there is we're moving from companies into collectives, into real organizations, as they call them, also exponential organizations. Nothing can become exponential when it remains in a small circle for small interests.
Yeah.
And there is the power of the collective that is really transforming everything right now. Everybody is talking about community.
Yeah.
Why? It's the only way to go further right now. And we will see that so much more because that's our natural state, practically. We came from there and our souls are longing for it.
Yeah.
So our systems are not created for our health and well-being and happiness. They're created for us to consume. And in order to consume, you have to need something. If you don't need, why you're not going to buy something, right? So you have to create this artificial need.
Yeah.
And that was the whole marketing plan. Marketing is about creating a fake need to complete it with products that you don't need in reality. But they have to convince you that you need it. Because otherwise it's not possible to buy it.
Yeah.
So what has been happening, I was impressed when we did our permaculture course like 2 years ago. And in the last 40 years, the level of nutrition of our food has dropped by 40%. Meaning you're eating exactly the same food and you're having half nutrients.
Yeah.
So our body is always in lack, in the state of lack.
Yeah.
How easy it is to sell things when you're in a constant state of lack, even if you're eating the same. So that's it. But it's changing right now.
Yeah.
And people they just realize that, like, I have everything. I don't need another shirt, for God's sake. I have everything. Yeah. So then something changes of, where am I placing my money? Because that becomes an investment and I'm supporting somebody with that instead of me needing the t-shirt. That's the big transformation. So all the new businesses is about how do you really serve something that is important beyond you, and your buyers connect to that. They don't connect to the actual product, they connect to the reason behind it.
Yeah, I can talk from experience. I was working in sales for 15 years and it was all about emotions.
Of course.
Like, for example, I was selling TVs, and back then the Philips, and still it is like that still. It's like they have this backlight, like the LEDs, and it was like one example with guys we often had, like, imagine you're at home and you're watching football and the whole wall behind you is green, and when they felt it, then they wanted it.
Of course.
And for example, one time I was applying to Apple to work at the Apple store, and I didn't have any Apple products at all. But for them, it was not super important. It was more like they wanted to feel that you're a big fan. And of course, I dropped out of it because, I mean...
You were not, yeah.
I mean, maybe they also lied. They said it's not important. They just wanted to have a good image or whatever. But anyway, like they didn't get new people working for them that they are really good in, like their CV is really good. Like they were working in big companies or whatever as for sailing. They just wanted to see that they are big fans. That's it.
That was clever from their side. The only thing is that for me it's time to move from manipulation to service.
Yeah.
Because we know very well how to create emotions right now in a very non-obvious and non-consciously accepted way, but we should stop doing that. Like, we should create emotions for things that are really serving us. Because emotion, it is the bigger driver. We think we're very rational, we're not. We are first driven by emotions, and then our brain translates it into reasons. So we rationalize our emotions practically.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, I think especially the last 2 years showed us like we are so deciding. So sometimes I think like people were deciding. It doesn't matter on which level you were with your opinion, on which side, but we didn't decide rationally. We decided emotionally, and sometimes it was so unlogical for me.
We always decide emotionally.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. One of the interesting parts about working with the heart and the brain back then was that we know from science right now that the heart has around 30 times bigger magnetic field than the brain, meaning it perceives things in a range that is 30 times bigger than the brain, meaning you first understand the world with your heart as a receptor, then you translate it with your brain.
Yeah, makes sense. And also, like I heard in the brain, they have like these magnets. Have you heard about this theory?
No.
Like the brain is kind of an antenna to download things. It's I forgot the name of these magnets, but it's basically lots of small like particles of magnets, and they are kind of a receptor for...
Not only the brain. Every organ has its own receptors, and every organ gets different types of information. The brain is just translating them in words, into thoughts, into everything. It's not only the brain who's receiving information, actually. We think it's the brain because it's a translator to us. It's not only the brain.
So what do you think, for example, the heart, where does it get the information? Is it, let's say when we talk about these models of 3D or 4D, whatever, do you think the heart or where comes into it? Let's talk about this. Like where intuition, gut feeling, where does it come from?
So there's way more information than the visible world, just to start from the basics, right? And it is communicated through energy, right? What we call the electromagnetic field is practically a field of energy that surrounds everything and is created from everything. So that's practically where we tap into when we talk about intuition, etc. I do feel that it goes beyond that. There is almost like a pool of consciousness that in specific states, and it's again through resonance, through coherence, right, that happens. We have seen that when something is vibrating in a specific wavelength, in order to tap into that, you have to be in the same wavelength. So practically what happens is, let's make it easier. If there is 3 different types of information in the universe, I'm just putting 3, just for simplification, right? If you are in the level of number 1, you will get this one. So if you are vibrating the same level, that's the one it will come to you. If you're in the second, that will be number 2, then it will be number 3. That's practically how it is. So when we change our vibration, we're able to perceive different types of information. It's always everything there. We are able to tap into it. And that's why we use this term. Because you start to go into the same wavelength. So there is an extreme amount of information out there, And we are channels to receive it and ground it. And actually, I think that's our basic role. We are receiving it and have to translate it into real 3D life action.
Yes.
That's why we were born in a human body. And that's our human experience. And that's what fulfills us the most, actually, funnily enough, when we really take something from the abstract and make it real. That's the biggest fulfillment. And that's the people that have seen being the happiest are the ones who are working with real, tangible effects into their surroundings, into life around them. It's the ones who are very involved in life, not very little involved in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know this feeling when I'm, let's say, in high vibration and it gets so much, like coming from low vibration and then out of the blue, or maybe not out of the blue, something are happening, and I'm really happy. I'm really like thankful for lots of things, smiling all the time. And then what happens? Lots of people come to me and say, "Hey, I was thinking about you. We should do this. We should do that." The best example I find is like when you're in love, like the first, like you're fully in love with someone that you just met, and then other people come and they also want to meet you, and it's so interesting. Like
what we are vibrating comes back to us. That's it. So that's the thing. We don't attract anything. We become something, and then we automatically have it all around us.
Yeah, it's kind of a family vibes.
Yeah.
So let's shortly talk about the 4 elements. What they are for you. Like what is each element symbolizes, and what's the meaning behind it?
For me, the 4 elements is an amazing compass, an amazing guide, right? And what I love a lot about them is that they're so intuitive, they don't need a theory. I don't need... as simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's very important for me because I'm tired of concepts, personally. The 4 elements, we are the 4 elements, like our composition. It's just a different composition of the elements. By default, everything around us.
So fire is, what is the fire in us?
So the 4 elements are fire, earth, water, and air, right? Fire has to do everything with all of our processes, digestion, the heart pump, everything that is breaking down things and transforming them. This is symbolized by the fire. In the more spiritual realm, it's our purpose. It's the reason we're existing. It's the light within us, why we're here. That's the fire. And we do start from fire. And even in entrepreneurship, you have to start from your why you're doing what you're doing. If you don't have that, you will not have enough energy to do the whole round and keep going into the process of creating a business that usually takes like 5 to 10 years, right? So we start from fire, literally. And then you go into... Fire creates earth. Fire transforms, breaks down, and even in photosynthesis, it creates food, right? It creates nutrition, it creates molecules. So that creates the soil, that creates the physical, tangible matter that becomes our base, our baseline. So we can step on earth. Earth is our ground, literally. And earth also holds the water. Earth creates the vessel for our waters to flow. And water is our emotions, it's our community, our connections. And all of that needs to be flowing, but it can also only flow with a direction when it's well held. Otherwise, it just overflows and it just spreads all around. That happens a lot with emotions, that happens a lot with connections. But if it's correctly directed from our earth, our ground, then it has a very big power towards where it's going, right? You can really imagine it how it is in a river, for example, right? And then the water, with its humidity and the evaporation, is changing the airs. And the air is affecting is moving the waters practically, right? With the clouds. And then it's bringing information from one place to another. So the air is the connecting field. It's practically the first element that was created around the earth to start having life. It's basic for life on this planet to exist. And it's the only one that really has no borders at all. Everything else, it's a little bit more separate. Air is the one that's holding them. And air gives oxygen to the fire to exist. So practically, if we don't have a big vision, if we don't have this understanding of what we are creating, it cannot fulfill our purpose. They're very interconnected. One is giving life to the other, practically. And that's the whole cycle. And I love working with the elements, first of all, because when you start understanding that I am that way because I came as a specific element and I want to become a second element. So we come with a star sign, a zodiac sign, in a specific element. All the zodiac signs are one of the 4 elements. And we are becoming another one, our rising. So we start with our sun and we are rising towards another sign, usually. Usually it's not the same.
Didn't know that. Okay, it's interesting.
So we are coming with default characteristics of one element. That's what we have learned in previous life. It's like, I know how to do that. That's so natural to me. Usually your star sign, it's so natural to you, you don't even have to try. Just natural. And you want to become something else because our soul always wants to evolve. So we are, during our lifetime, we are becoming that second. So we are becoming another element. So, and this is the whole journey of a human for me. The interesting part is that when we understand the characteristics of each element and we connect to our element, there is so much guilt that is just out of us because we are like that, Point.
Yeah, guilt is a big thing these days.
Exactly. And we start seeing ourselves through the lenses of, I can always go back into that because that's my skill set, right? My tool case. And I can always lay back into that, but I also know where I'm going.
I really love this, how you explain it. It's like, especially in the hard times, I would say, like, that's my theory about this, like, you can go back to your element, but you have this direction. And there is this saying, like, this quote, people can survive, I think it's 3 days without water, 1 week without food, but not one moment without hope.
Exactly. And we were talking, just yesterday I was talking with a friend about how to hire and engage and keep your people engaged in your company. Right now we are using only 3 of the 4 elements practically. What we do is we look how is the person, what do they know, their skills, right? And what they're good at. And we leave out what they want to learn, what is their soul longing to become. And that's why they start being disengaged very soon, because they're not fulfilling their soul purpose. And the problem is that companies are going to what is already existing, but then you just ignore the bigger potential. And that's very stupid of us, actually, because the bigger drive is in the potential. You get the tools that you get in your life to fulfill the potential.
How would the world be different and jobs would be different when we're following just the potential?
You have to have all of the 4. That's the interesting part. You have to have all of the 4 because then you have a very good balance. Because if it's only the potential, the person is not holding into something secure. Your skills, it's the space that you feel secure about. It's your earth. You need to have your earth also there, but you need to have your fire also there. If one of the 2 is not there, you either become too stable, too stagnant, and that's what happens in big organizations. People are super comfortable because they were hired for their skills only.
And I think also they're too much looking into the past, and we have to dive into the future, which is unknowable. It's not.
They look at the experience, but they are not looking at what the person can do. So there's no drive there. There's no drive for the person to evolve.
So what do you think? How can can companies integrate that 4th element? What is needed that they can focus, not just focus on it, but to
implement it. It starts from the very, very basic of understanding what is seeing and listening each one of the employees. Right? Just for the very basics. Once they have started understanding also who they are, because trust me, most of the people, they are not working in their element, not even close. Usually they're oppressing it because they feel guilt about it. Very common, very, very common, especially for the fire people, so common.
I think I'm a fire person.
Which zodiac sign?
I'm a Capricorn.
No, you're Earth.
I'm Earth.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
which is, we'll have to see your rising.
Yeah.
Because that might be fire.
I don't know my rising, to be honest.
I'll check it after.
Yeah.
So organizations, first, really look at your people. Step number 1, you cannot miss that. Once you have tracked down and you know what element it's each one of them, and you know also where they're going, right? Then you can start seeing their assets, so what they know, that's the skill set, right? And their needs, where they want to grow.
Yeah.
So when you have all of these 4, you can very easily place them into constellations. I love the constellation of the 4, plus 1. You always need the 5th. So the funny part is many people asking me, why 4 elements? There are 5. I'm like, of course, there are 5. They're the 4 elements plus spirit, ether. But the 5th is not in the physical realm. And the 5th always manifests when the 4 are in the correct direction, funnily enough. It's this entity that manifests, it's the spirit.
Yeah.
This entity of the organization, this of the group that we were talking before, that spirit, practically.
Yeah.
So it will always be there when you correctly place the 4 and that you have a purpose to fulfill together. So that's the best way to organize. I have seen, and it's just magnificent to observe, that as soon as you place 4 people, that each one of them is representing one of the 4 elements into a group, and you allow a bit of time, that can be from 3 months to 6 months, a year, like the more you go, the best, of course, they automatically start acquiring qualities of all the 4 elements, because we know that we are mirroring, our brains are mirroring the people that are surrounding us.
Yeah.
So if you are very structured and I am your best friend, I will automatically start becoming a little bit more structured by default.
Yeah.
So if you have all the 4 qualities, I will automatically start being a little bit more of all the 4.
Yeah.
And I have seen it so much in all of
so
our
good.
groups.
I like that.
And the interesting part is that you don't need to learn it. It happens anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about working with the system, because you don't need to learn anything. You just need to be there and be yourself. And that's all that it takes.
And also kind of, for me, it's kind of a remembering.
Yeah.
It was always there, but I kind of forgot, or I thought it's not really important. But then when I'm in this, let's say, like I have a team of 3 other people, and they're having these other main elements. And then I'm feeling, okay, wow, water feels like that. And I remember I was in a phase in my life I was more watery. Or fiery, or whatever it is. And I just love that, it's great.
There's also a relief when, many of us go into being a lot of some of the other elements because we want to create something and it needs more of this energy. Once there is somebody else who's better in that and is taking care of it, you just don't need to do it anymore. And that's such a relief. And in entrepreneurship even more. When you're a solopreneur, oh my God, so many hats. And then you're like, oh my God, somebody is better in communication, they can do it. And it's like, I don't need to do that because it's difficult for me, because it's not my default. And that's just like, I can be myself. And the best I can do is actually to be myself. And the best I can serve is to be myself.
It's amazing. And especially in a world where advertisements, it's mostly about transporting the feeling of not being good enough. This shift of you're more than enough. And we want you to be you, actually, because that's the best you can do. That's so good. I think also, like, it has to be like that. Like school systems, they have to change on other potentials. So what do you think in school? What could be like the future kind of the main focus in school, right, when the people are growing up?
I think first of all is like to really allow the children to understand who they are. And allow them to explore with that. To not tell them what they're supposed to become. Because their inner being knows very well what they're supposed to become. So it's more giving them the tools of exploration and the frameworks to understand who they are. Because you do need different tools to understand what's happening, right? So I think that's the only real thing that we have to do with them. And second, to allow them to really continue what they're bringing in this world. Even if it doesn't look necessary or normal, in 10 years, it might be the most crucial thing, because things are changing so much.
I thought about this because, for example, a friend of mine, her son is 9 years old, and now he's into Roblox, which is also like a building game, but he was much into Minecraft. And I learned a bit about Minecraft. I watched some videos of people playing Minecraft, and it's still not my thing really, but I can understand the fascination behind it. Yeah. Maybe you've heard also about this game, and it's the most sold game ever. Minecraft.
They're creating worlds.
Yeah.
And that's particularly what we all do.
Yeah.
And the only interesting thing is to start understanding that that's not only in video game.
Yeah.
Every interaction, every decision, every thought, every feeling is creating our own world. Every single moment. We are creating our world constantly. I was just talking about that in the phone just before we met.
Yeah.
And we're talking about physical space, and like physical space, it's not experienced in the same way. We're in the same house. It's not the same for me and for you. It's the same house, right?
Yeah.
It's the same house.
Yeah.
But our inner world makes it a completely different experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. The moment that they realize that what their vision, what they're bringing, who they are, it can be expressed in the world, that's when the fun starts.
Yeah.
Then when life really becomes interesting.
Yeah.
People are talking about entertainment. I'm like, let's talk about real fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about when you're really creating a wonderland around you in real life with real people.
Yes. Oh man, I'm so looking forward for this time. It's like something I never forget is like Jason Silva again. He was talking about like when kids are growing up, it's all about exploration, and these days it's still like when they get older, like adults, it's about exploitation, because they think they know everything, because the school and the society tells them, you know, this is a good life, this is the plan for having a good life, and they think that's it.
Yeah, because
working
we forced them for so long to believe
40, 50 years, and then being retired, and then enjoying life.
And we call it middle life crisis.
Yeah. It's so good. Oh, I'm looking so forward. Like deep play, like being playful with each other. Like the last interview I did, it was also like play fights, like especially guys, and also of course women can do that. Like they can playfully fight with each other, like maybe like dogs are doing. They're not really killing each other, whatever, but just that's one term. Of course, you can do other things, but
we
it's
do that all the time. We're doing that right now.
Yeah.
I love the containers to be exploring more. We need them for the beginning.
Yeah,
but the real fun
it's a tool.
When it becomes your life.
Yeah.
When everything that you do is in that spirit.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to do. That's our real nature.
Yeah.
And it really becomes interesting when it creates a positive impact around you and also for other people. Then it starts really becoming something that you are full on. You are, it is you, you are it, and that's where it really starts being your full potential, what we call full potential. It's not, don't have to separate for anything. Yeah. You don't have to play somebody else. You don't have to be something else. It's just yourself.
Mm-hmm. Especially in a time where they call it bullshit jobs. I heard in America there are about 70% of people, they think about their jobs.
Because it's true. They are bullshit jobs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Everybody's talking about, let's not lose these jobs. I'm like, no, we don't need people working like machines. We can use machines and allow people to be people. The only problem right now is that we don't know how to support them. That's our problem. Logistics again.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need people working in supermarkets. I'm sorry. It's not a human job to be done.
No.
Point.
Yeah.
We have to lose these jobs.
Yeah.
To be able to allow people to create.
And one thing I heard why we got into this, one of the main factors is we became kind of like computer systems, where it's like the binary computer systems, they are like on or off, 1 or 0. And now when we get into the quantum kind of area of computers, where there is like each kind of potential between 0 and 1.
All together at the
same time.
Yeah.
Just to, and the great thing about quantum, I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but what I love about it, it's like, especially the people who are left brain, they are like logical thinkers. They get into kind of they cannot totally understand it.
It's because it's coming together. Like quantum theory for me is really proving spirituality, and spirituality is proving quantum theory.
Yeah.
And that's the new era we are going towards. There's no either or. It's both of them together at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's still very difficult for us to comprehend because we need to simplify things to be able to perceive them.
Yeah.
With the brain, if we allow our body to become an antenna and perceive things with other organs, it's way easier. We can hold way more information. And we start acting upon, it's this inner knowing that we're calling.
Oh, I love this word. Yeah.
And the knowing, you cannot explain it very well. And that's always my difficulty. It's like, can you send me referrals? I'm like, I'm getting my information directly. I don't know what referrals to send you.
Yeah.
Can we meditate? Maybe then you also get your own information.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The brain is not very efficient in holding information. We have a limited amount of holding and processing information. We are a very low chip computer practically, if we use only the brain.
Yes.
But we have way more. Our skin, our heart, our guts, our liver, our kidney, our legs, our everything, our aura, our systems that are constantly feeding us back with information. We were just learned to discard it because we were not able to understand it the way the mind does.
Yeah.
But when we implement everything, that's when we start tapping into the flow because everything is becoming a feedback loop.
Yeah.
And that's how the animals operate. If you see an animal, it's always alert, always chilled. It's always alert, but it's not stressed.
Yeah.
But it's always chilling also. But if something happens, it's ready to act. I don't think it's thinking about the action that it will take, but it's ready. It's this feeling of readiness. And actually, spirituality talks a lot about that. It's like this feeling of being always ready for your master to come back home. You don't know when it's going to happen. You're just preparing yourself. But you're not acting upon it. You're just preparing. Being ready.
And often, and you had that, I guess, before the Vipassana experience, when we talked about in the beginning, when it was really, when you went really down, like to the dark kind of fear and all that. Still, there was something there that was so important and got you into a new kind of. And I think if people. Also, from seeing it in other people, and especially again, like these 2 years are really, I think people learned a lot about this.
Yes.
To let go, to be really at home, and to find beauty just in the small things and
be with themselves.
Huh?
Be with themselves.
Exactly. Yes, the longest relationship we have in life, so it's important. And also, I realized, for example, I'm facing like IBS symptoms like since 10 years, more or less. It's getting more or less than.
What are
like
the IBS symptoms?
IBS is like irritable bowel syndrome, so like some like energy problems, some bowel symptoms. And in the beginning, I was just always craving for external things that. So I was forgetting about this. So to forget it,
to distract yourself,
distraction. But the more I was like, I think there is something to learn, and I trust this. And I had one.
It's a notification from your body.
Yes.
Every illness is a notification. The alarm starts lower. If you don't listen to it, it goes up into cancer. Cancer is just the last done. Like you have to change something. It's like you're not listening, but you were not listening to the previous ones. It doesn't come all of a sudden, never.
And also, like how we understand the way of our body being sick. Usually, especially in Western medicine, when you feel like some imbalance, then we go to the doctor
and we shut it down.
We shut it down.
Yeah.
And
so
now,
we don't have the notification, so we don't know what's happening practically. But it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
We just don't get the messages.
Yeah. Pain medications, all that, or these psychological things, and then we go to the doctor, and then it's done, kind of. And now we are learning more about no, this is a process, it's important, and there's some learning in it. And now my theory is, and I'm curious what you think about, now with the world, which is also kind of a body, we are going through this really difficult phase. Everyone have had some difficult moments, especially right now. And I think it's the same. If you want to shut it down, it will become more crazy. And I think it's the old system is all those last breaths.
Absolutely.
So we have to even embrace this kind of unknowing where we're going to, and just trust that some kind of intelligence, some kind of, you can call it God or whatever, is doing exactly the best for, if you trust it, the best for you.
What's happening right now is we are in the element of the fire of the deep transformation.
Yeah.
But you need the decay, and we don't like the decay because it reminds us of our death.
Yeah.
But without that, you will not have a new life coming in. And we need to let it die, let the branches that are not needed fall.
Yeah.
Because then new ones will come, new life. But only if the previous ones have fallen. And we are in this phase of systems falling.
Yeah.
And if we don't drop them, we just keep something dead being there. Do we want that? No, not really, right? And it does feel like a death, because it is a death. But life is cyclical. After every death, there is a rebirth.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
We just learned that we thought that it was linear. So then we think that we're going in the end, and it's just nothingness after.
Yeah.
No, it's a spiral.
Yeah.
It's a spiral.
Yeah.
So, and we have started tapping more into these terms and really understanding more about the cyclical way of doing things, also in business, and it's very interesting because it's everywhere. The day has a night, and a night has a day.
Yeah.
We don't imagine if we were fearing that every night there's no day coming after, and every day there's no night coming after.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny. The way we're operating is really deeply funny. It's hilarious.
It's a
Literally,
big
it's like,
joke.
Where did we got that from, for God's sake?
Yeah.
We had no reference about all of that. Anyway, it's very interesting. But I love the way you're going. And also, there are two more things that I feel that humanity itself is... we can think about it as one person. Right now, we are moving from our teenagehood to our maturity.
I totally agree.
The teenagehood came when science came. It's like, what do you do when you're a teenager? And you're like, Dad, Mom, you know nothing, I'll show you.
Yeah.
So we reject everything, and then we say, I will show them. And
also, teenagers are often, it's all about them. Like,
it's all about them.
me.
It's third chakra, exactly. What happens in maturity is you start understanding that my parents had some things that were correct, and I also found some things.
Yeah.
Both together, it is the recipe that I'm bringing. And I think now it's happening that the world that we rejected and the world that we found, they're coming together. And that's extremely interesting. There's also one more thing. As we're moving, all processes are moving in the chakra system. We were in the third chakra, fame, money, positions, right? Like, that's third chakra. It's like, who am I in the world? Very important when it's balanced, right? Money also. Yeah. And we're moving to the fourth chakra. The interesting thing is that between the first and the second chakra, the second and the third, there is one energetic step that needs to be taken. So it's almost like linear. Between the third and the fourth, there's 1,000.
Whoa.
So practically you can never reach it until you do a leap.
Wow.
And that's why everybody's talking about the leap of faith.
Wow.
You have to jump it. You will never, it will take you lifetimes. You cannot go linear.
Yeah.
And I think we are exactly in that.
Yeah.
And it feels scary because you think you're gonna fall from the cliff and die. But you don't. But you have to jump.
Yes.
That's the thing.
And that's also why I called my podcast Future Jazz, because jazz is on one hand it's like music, one way of music, but it's also like the real jazz is really when you improvise.
Yeah.
Step by step.
Falling into the unknown.
Yeah. exactly.
And connecting, so the music comes as you play.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
It's a dance.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
what
dance.
we're learning.
Yeah, it has to be a dance. Yeah, totally.
It's the only time that jazz is actually nice. Otherwise, it sounds weird.
Yes. Yeah.
And you really feel it when the musicians click.
Yeah.
And that's actually coherence.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly, in music it's perfect. When they get into coherence, they're all playing the same song, practically. And that's where we're moving. We're all manifesting the next new plan of humanity.
Yes.
Each one has their own part. The more we find this unique part, the better we serve this bigger plan. So the more sure we can be that it will happen, actually, in the best way.
Oh, I like that.
And the elements have a lot in that for me, to find what is that puzzle piece that I am bringing into the image.
Yeah. Beautiful. Cool. So, yeah, let's...
Start wrapping up. We can talk for hours,
wrapping
right?
up, yeah, we can. And probably we'll see each other again and talk more. So, at the end of this podcast, I always ask my guests, what are 3 recommendations or 3 things you know about yourself that help you and probably help also the listeners and the viewers of this podcast to have a better life and to be more happy?
For me, it's like keep searching who you are. Like every single day, in every single action, every single hour, who are you? You, like literally. Not in a selfish way, in the truth. What is this soul wants to manifest? That's the very first and basic for me. Second, surround yourself with people who are heading in the same direction. It gives you so much power. It gives you so much strength. And third, really find that purpose that lights up your life. There's nothing nicer than that. And don't stop until you find it.
And speak it out.
And speak it out and do it. If that's probably why the only real reason you're here.
Yeah.
And it can be anything. It can be, as I'm saying, it can be raise a cat. It can be create an exponential organization. Anything in between. But find it.
Yeah. And if you're not looking for it, that's also okay. I would say. But sooner or later, there's no other way to go back to this. There's no other way.
There's another way to fulfill the reason that you're here.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, if people want to get in contact with you, what do you offer to people? What kind of workshops or offerings, coachings?
So right now we have 3 systems that are currently in place. The first one is the impact circles. The impact circles is the system I was telling you. They are small 4-people groups. Each one has all the 4 elements. And it's almost like a mastermind. So you're usually getting into people that are in the same level of business or similar, but they have very different qualities as people. So it's a supporting accountability group that allows you to dive deeper into who you are and what's your purpose according to your element, and allow everybody else to witness and help you to rise into that. So that's the first one. And we're starting the new circles every season. So we're going to start for spring. And spring is a very interesting moment because it's the burst of something new. We have been incubating during winter. And that's actually our second service. And now we're going to go into the birthing. And that's the impact circles. This is mostly for people who are either transitioning from a more traditional position or corporation to their own path, or for people who really want to tap further into the understanding of who they are, even if they are creating their own project. These are the impact circles. And now what we started in winter and is going to continue into a multi-season exploration is mostly for people who have already started their project, their business, and they are in the layer, so they have found their purpose, they are on it already. And what they need is they need more resources to be able to grow further without engaging in the old structures that will eventually make them need a lot of resources to scale. So what we are creating is these cohorts of entrepreneurs that again are opening every season. So we're opening for March, again the same. And this is really, we are co-creating a system of exchanging resources between startup founders to start with. And so you come into a group practically that you have right now another 10, in March probably will be another 50 people that have been in their own path and have extremely amazing skills in business. And you're able to tap into these skills to grow your business, and you're able to help them to grow their own. So that's really mutual exchange, how we can rise up all together. And that's what we're creating. And everybody who's involved in that is actually becoming our first co-founders, because we strongly believe that every type of contribution, it is helping us create what we're creating. So even with your monthly fee, you are supporting us with your financial capital also, with your time, probably with your intellectual, social, and spiritual capital. So it's a system that is creating itself. It's a self-sustainable system creating itself. And it's a very beautiful exploration together with other amazing people, practically. Like, that's the experience that you get when you're inside. That's a bigger picture, is the system. And then, of course, my personal services. I love lately to engage a lot into strategy, and strategy to allow companies to become from companies, movements, or exponential organizations. So how to allow the purpose to be the center, and everybody who's getting involved are attracted for this purpose that is also their own purpose. And that creates a very different dynamic into a company, because you understand that what you're bringing to the world, it's not only you who wants to see that happening. And that all of a sudden creates a magnificent field around it and allows all the magic of the universe to happen. People are coming at the right time, resources are coming at the right time. You just see the game of the universe being created. So that's my personal mentoring and strategy sessions that I offer to specific entrepreneurs for their own business to grow. So right now we're having these three, and we're preparing for our first physical gathering. It's the second, actually. The first was a pilot. The second physical gathering in Cadiz, in Spain, towards summer, actually the last week of June. And this is practically really a fire warrior activation. It's a retreat style, but it's really not retreat at all. That's why I don't call it a retreat, I call it an activation. You're getting much more in contact with your elements. You're getting in contact with the elements outside of you in nature. You really understand how it works, it operates, because funnily enough, we don't know enough about that. It was a surprise for me, like class A information. Then how the nature works inside of you, and how the nature of our societies work. And that's, it's really, I feel that this program is a code that is just being embedded into your awareness and allows you to start growing to your next step, and that's why it's called an activation, to your next step of yourself and of your business. So that's going to happen in Cadiz, in a beautiful space we just got connected, and it's going to happen there. So that's what's present right now, and all of them are very exciting for me.
Wow, that's so great. I just like... I didn't really get the full picture of what you're doing. We met 5 years ago.
It's been some time, yeah.
In the mindful experience you did, this meetup. And now I can really understand much more of why and what you're doing, and I just love it. And especially the thing with the 4 elements.
It keeps growing also, you know. The interesting part is that you ask me, are you doing the 4 elements? I'm like, it's the first time in my life I'm doing that. And it's so focused and so directed, and I didn't do it on purpose. Just everything else left my space to give me my full focus there. Awesome. Because by default, I'm an air element, so I love to engage in so many concepts and all of it. Like, everything is exciting. Everything is exciting. Yeah. But there's something magical when you have your whole focus in something, because you are vibrating it. You are completely there. Yeah. So it becomes so much more natural. Yeah. It just happens. You walk and things happen. And you think and things pop. Like, you're creating this field around you. Yeah, you're kind of connecting to it, and then it's so much easier, actually. Yeah. Funnily enough. And you told me when we were walking to my place, like you, as you said, like you're living in the mountains right now,
and now you get it's so much easier to get all the ideas and
of course,
things
because I am with the elements all the time. If I'm going to sleep, it depends if it's going to be too windy. Yesterday I couldn't sleep, it was just too windy for me, and everybody's like, do you hear that? I'm like, of course, it was waking me up. I warm up with fire. If I don't have fire, I don't warm up. Like you feel the interaction.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for being here. It was really interesting.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much.
I hope to see you really soon. Maybe in the mountains, maybe somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to get in contact with you, like, what's your website?
Our website is warriors4 with a number 4 elements.com.
Yeah.
Then it's the same in LinkedIn. It's the same on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the easiest it's also on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm Aliki Ko. They can just reach out to me, write me. And by email, it's Aliki, just my name, at warriors4elements.com. You can also find it in our website.
Cool. I will also put it into the show notes. And
and I'm very glad to talk about all of that and really how to allow people to tap into their purpose with every kind of tool I can help them with. I really put myself into the backstage of service and support lately, and it's just such a beautiful feeling.
And I'm sure the people who really felt you in this episode of the podcast, they don't really, it's not really important if it's about 4 elements, the tool of the 4 elements, or something else.
It's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's just a tool.
They just feel it.
I even know that this will expand later on.
Yeah.
But it's the most simple structure. It's the simpler system right now we can create, because right now we don't need complicated systems. It might grow, and I know that. But right now it's just like this clarity. It's like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
And I think we need that right now.
Yeah, we really need that.
Yeah.
Simplify things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.